Rudy Giuliani testifying before a special grand jury in Atlanta. He is the target of a criminal investigation into potentially illegal attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia in favor of former President Trump. For more, let's bring in ABC News senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky, along with Jeffery Robbins, former chief minority counsel for the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Aaron, what more are we learning about how Rudy Giuliani is involved in this investigation in Georgia?
Well, he was called to testify because prosecutors said he knew about the effort to overturn the results. He may have had knowledge about what President Trump thought about it, and others within the Trump inner circle and his allies about how they set about trying to convince Georgia lawmakers that the vote was somehow fraudulent, even though Giuliani never presented evidence that he said he had when he appeared before Georgia lawmakers. So the special grand jury can't really recommend criminal charges as far as an indictment goes, but they can decide whether this case moves forward toward an indictment. It's not clear, though, Giuliani's going to be providing a whole lot of help to this special grand jury, though, Kenneth, because as a target, he may well invoke Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. He has also signaled that as an attorney for the former president, he would invoke attorney-client privilege if asked about conversations with Trump.
Well, Jeff, you just heard Aaron there that this special grand jury doesn't have the power to charge anyone. So what are prosecutors doing here? What are they seeking to accomplish by having Giuliani testify?
Well, as Aaron says, it does have the power to move the matter toward an indictment. So this is not exactly an empty exercise. What they want to do is get information on two subjects. One is the former mayor's potential culpability in connection with conspiring to tamper with the Georgia election law, and what he can provide about the former president's culpability in that regard. So he is a target, and therefore they're obviously looking to get information about what he did and his potential conspiracy to tamper with that election statute, and what he knows about the former president's involvement. I agree entirely, though, that we're unlikely to know very much because he's likely to take either the Fifth or assert attorney-client privilege, or frankly, any other privilege that anybody can concoct to avoid answering the questions, truthfully, I expect, posed by this grand jury.
But even if that happens, if he takes the Fifth, they will still potentially go through that list of questions?
I think they will. And one of the reasons for that, Kenneth, is this. Just because he takes the Fifth doesn't mean that that there isn't evidentiary value to what he may say. Just because he asserts the attorney-client privilege doesn't mean that there isn't an ability to say, you know what, to take it further and say, you don't actually have the right to assert that privilege because, for example, you're being asked about conversations in which other people were present, which would abrogate the privilege. Or you're being asked about things that you said to other people claiming to be speaking on behalf of the former president, which would mean that the privilege didn't apply. So there's all manner of questions that could be usefully asked. I do think that probably we're going to get if not a middle finger from the former mayor, then an unwillingness to answer questions for reasons which he's entitled to invoke.
All right, no matter what happens down there in Georgia, we will keep an eye on that. But let's shift now to the House January 6th committee and its investigation to the Capitol riot. Former Vice President Mike Pence was in New Hampshire today where he said he'd consider testifying before the panel. Let's take a listen.
If there was an invitation to participate, I would consider it. But you've heard me mention the Constitution a few times this morning. On the Constitution, we have three co-equal branches of government. And any invitation to be directed to me, I would have to reflect on the unique role that I was serving in as Vice President.
Wow, Aaron, I think did this come out of the blue? I mean, how significant could this be if Pence actually testifies?
Well, it was a question at a politics and eggs breakfast in Manchester, New Hampshire, and his response was really the most extensive comment he's made about the prospect of testifying before this committee. It would be significant. The vice president said he would consider it, but there was a hedge there, as he said he would reflect on his role as vice president at the time. He said it would be unprecedented for a vice president to be summoned to Capitol Hill to testify before Congress. But we're told that behind the scenes, sources have told us that the committee has been negotiating for several months in order to secure potential testimony from the former vice president. They'd like to know, for example, about the pressure that he felt was exerted on him by the former president and his allies to try and do something to overturn the election results. Of course, we know that testimony has already established where the vice president was on January 6th, what he was doing in that underground parking garage. The committee no doubt wants to hear from him directly.
Oh, I'm sure they do. And Aaron, on the Mar-a-Lago search, quick question on that. We know that tomorrow a judge will hold a hearing on a request from ABC News and other media organizations seeking to unseal the affidavit behind the FBI search there. What more are we learning?
Well, it would be highly unusual for this to be unsealed. It could be dozens, potentially 100 pages or so, really that explains the underlying suspicions of the FBI as to why they believe crimes may have occurred at the former president's estate. And crucially, it could signal who they're talking to, who they want to talk to, who may be cooperating. A roadmap, the Justice Department called it, to their investigation. So the Justice Department has asked this to be kept under wraps. And given the temperature in the country that I think we've talked about before, Kenneth, with all of the threats and acts of violence directed toward those involved in the search last week at Mar-a-Lago, the Justice Department is expected to argue that it would just be too dangerous if this document got out.
All right, well, we're out of time, so we got to leave it there. Aaron, Jeff, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.